Paris is marking 1 month since the terror attacks that killed 130. The November 13th night of horrors targeted restaurants, a sports stadium, and a rock concert. The greatest number of victims were killed in that concert hall. Most of the attackers killed themselves using suicide vests or were killed by police. But the hunt is on for more suspects, and the dragnet stretches across Europe. In Brussels, public transport, schools, and offices are closed for days for police raids. 2 suspects are sought who police say assisted one of the terror suspects in obtaining that ID to enter Hungary. And for a look back at the Paris attacks, we're joined by Douglas Smith. He has worked both in the Clinton and Obama administrations and is a friend here at CCTV. Welcome back to the broadcast.
Thank you.
Douglas, as you know, Abdelhamid Abaoud was reportedly planning these attacks for months. The U.S. reported to France that there was chatter out there. Was this simply a security failure on the part of France?
I think what we saw here is all the dots were on the map. France just didn't have the time to pull them all together. The Germans were warning, the Belgians warned them, we had been warning. It was much like we saw with our own 9/11, that all the information was there, they just weren't able to get it together in time.
But were they not more sensitive after the Charlie Hebdo attacks?
You would have thought they had been, but the problem with France is they're dealing with a significant problem as they look to the Syrians coming into Europe, the refugee crisis, and I think they were just overwhelmed. And I think one of the problems is they were getting loud warnings, but they weren't heeding them fast enough. But the data coming in, it was just flooding them, and I don't think they had the time to really analyze it in the way they needed to.
In the United States, we have a well-known presidential contender who is making waves internationally. He's drawing international condemnation over his remarks saying that all Muslims, not just refugees, but actually tourists, should be banned from coming into the United States until this situation works itself out. Is this dangerous, and if so, why?
I think it's beyond volatile is what he's doing. He's giving ISIS a massive victory. He is, in a sense, becoming their recruiter. By him going out there and banning an entire religion, of which 99.9% are peaceful, loving people, he is inspiring that 0.01% that want to join ISIS to join this fight. Just last year, over 25,000 Muslims were killed and wounded by ISIS. And I think what Donald Trump is doing is just instilling fear where it doesn't need to happen. And I think it's going to cause a tremendous crisis. I keep waiting for the backlash to come back against them. It doesn't seem to have happened yet.
U.S. President Obama has been heavily criticized for his plan to fight ISIL, or lack of one, many say. They say it's fallen flat. But since these attacks, we've seen China come out condemning the terrorist attacks. We now have French President Hollande calling for an all-out, quote, war on ISIL. They've united with Russia. Has this united people behind ISIL, or is it pushing people back? I mean,
I think it's a little of both. I mean, if we roll the tape back 6-8 months ago when ISIS assassinated the Jordanian pilot, I thought that was going to be a turning point. I thought that would make the Arab world really stand up and say, hey, wait a minute, they're taking out our own. We continue to see these attacks happen. While I think it's really important that Russia seems to have now finally awoken and joined the fight, China has joined the fight, obviously France has become very aggressive. What we really need to see is our Arab allies to really stand in there and really help, because it's going to be a united effort. And what we need is to look at this in a clear, long-range plan, not in the element of a presidential cycle. Obviously, the Republicans running for president all want to get out there and shout and yell and claim for things, but they don't really have the knowledge of what's going on behind the scenes. And it's not so simple as sending 100,000 people to the battlefront. Just since the Paris attack, we've seen an incredible uptick in attacks against ISIS infrastructure. Over 300 oil installations, the things that they used to fund their fight have been blown up. We see better intelligence sharing amongst us and NATO and our Arab allies. What we need to allow happen is all these groups to coalesce, and most importantly, to see our Arab allies really get into this fight as well.
Okay, Douglas Smith, thank you. Always great to see you. We appreciate it.